now recording on our computer. And let's begin. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody. So this is the second Saturday's poetry reading, which we've been doing at All Souls, I think, for about 4 or 5 years right now. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Kerr. I wear many hats at All Souls, and on behalf of our membership and our priest in charge, Pastor Motor, it's my privilege to welcome you here today. As I say, when we greet people in our historic building, which you can see there on the slide, we are there for the community. So we are there for the community. Although we're a functioning Episcopal church, we're there for the community in that our doors are open every day. We're there for the community in that we collect food every day. So when people come in, you can always drop food that goes to St. Cuthbert's food pantry. We're also there for the community. We do an interfaith on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock and 9:30 using the same Zoom technology. We do an interfaith service as well. And actually, a number of the people on the line here who have already logged in, we're up to 21, by the way, have participated in that service. And what we're doing is that we're using the same technology today that we use for our morning prayer services. And we figured out if we could figure out how to get a whole bunch of people to pray together on a regular basis, we ought to be able to figure out how to do a interactive live poetry reading as well. Just a couple of things. When in normal times, in addition to these monthly second Saturday poetry readings, we also do shamanic drumming, which is a Native American healing experience once a month. We do our concerts Saturdays at 6 once a month, and we do Gregorian chant once a month as well. So again, we're a church, but we're here for the community, and we view working with the poets, and we're so grateful for the relationship we had with Barbara Southard, and we had with Pramila, and we had with Gladys, that we really these poetry as an opportunity to serve the community. And I think that was, bear with me here. Something just happened to my screen. There we go. Good. I think it was Gladys Henderson who told me years ago that poetry is, after all, a form of prayer. Just a couple of things here. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara in a second. If you want to be on the reading list, just put your name listed, and we'll call when we get to the open read, we will call the names in the order that they're listed. Please keep your microphone on mute until you're called upon. Feedback is a gift. So as you reflect on this poetry session, and this is our first time we've ever tried to do this, there is my email. Please send me a note, and we will certainly appreciate and look forward to whatever feedback you have as we do future programs. So we started right at 11. I'm going to turn it over to Barbara. Barbara will say a few remarks, turn it over to Linda. And then we get to 11:30, we're going to do the open read, and Barbara will come in at the end with some concluding remarks. The Poet Laureate always gets the last word. So at this point, I'm going to turn off my microphone. And Barbara, I'm going to turn it over to you. All yours, Barbara.
All right. Hi, everybody. Okay, now I see you all. This is Dan, you did a wonderful job of putting this together. And Kathy, you did a wonderful job of picking our featured poet, as always. So welcome to the first reading. And I have thought about this for a long time, but at the beginning, I have a whole bookcase full of local readers. And each time we meet, I want to read a short poem from one of the chapbooks of a local reader before I introduce the featured reader. And so who I've chosen this time is a chapbook by Gloria. Can you see this, or do you see it backwards? Yeah. Okay. And so it's a chapbook by Gloria. It's called What I Couldn't Swallow. I'm going to read a short poem of hers before I introduce Linda. For the quiet ones who cannot speak, the weary ones who cannot sleep, the angry ones who cannot rage, the melancholy ones who cannot weep, for the chained who need wings, for the ones who swing from their own rope, for the ones who slip the wafer of fear under their tongues, for all living things that ache and bleed and eat of bitter herbs. Let their wounds be healed. Let their soulmates seek them across mountain and sea. Let their sorrows be soothed by the soft glove of loving, and let every man find his God, or his God find him. That's Gloria Murray, one of our local poets. And now it is a great pleasure to introduce Linda Oprah as our featured reader. And she has so many accomplishments. I have a lot to read. Linda is the author of 8 collections of poetry. Her poems have appeared in the Hudson Review, Poetry Ireland Review, the Atlanta Review, the Patterson Literary Review, Crannog and Tafan, the 7th Quarry, Swansea Poetry Magazine, the Nassau County Poet Laureate Society Review, and the New York Times. She has been featured in the Ballyborough Poetry Festival in County Cavan, the Walking with Whitman series at the Walt Whitman Birthplace, the poetry series at Long Island University, CW Post Campus. For many years, she has taught poetry at the New England Young Writers Conference at Breadloaf. The Suffolk County Legislature presented Linda with a proclamation honoring her poetry. Linda holds a Doctor of Arts degree in English and American Literature from St. John's University. And so let's welcome Linda Oprah.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. And a special thanks to Dan and Kathy for organizing today, and Gladys and Pramila for keeping this wonderful venue so poetry friendly to all of us. And one of the greatest disappointments of the spring for me was not being able to be at the church on April 23rd when I was originally supposed to be there. But being here today with everyone makes up for all of that. So thank you so much. I'm going to be reading, I'm going to hold up a book here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to be reading from my new collection of poems, which was published by Writers Inc. Press, which is run by David Axelrod, who lived on Long Island for many years and was a wonderful presence in our poetry community. The first poem that I would like to read is called Your Hands. Your hands. You do not come empty-handed to the morning. In one hand, is there not the lonely jug thirsting for something beyond what the night remembers? Surely you intend to begin there. How much light can you carry from the roof of the sun into the cool kitchen of your dreams? And the other hand, what tenderness does it offer? The quick glance of the wren feeding at the grass, the wild red eye of the flower opening itself to the fingers of the wind. And if not the jug, if not the tenderness, then what have you? And who are you? Show me your hands. These next 2 poems were written at a very special place to me out on the East End, a very special beach that I love to be at. And I often feel when I sit there and write that I am given the words to say. So this first poem is called What I Was Told. The wind has no words when it reaches you. The water beckons without your name. To know them, an ear must learn the language the tongue has yet to find. And the second poem, My Voice. My voice has no words. It is the rush of river, the climb of moon. It leaves shells at your feet. You will hear a wave find the shore where once there was silence. You will wake to darkness as if it is called. Past the old creaking pine, past the rustle of leaf and limb, past the small bird, the air still chill, whose waking at dawn sounds almost human. One of the most beautiful things about this time of year is seeing the birds and all their activity. And without as much traffic and without as much airplane activity, of course, we can hear all that tons better. This one is called All Because. A robin perches on a white fence in an amber gauze of fading light. He fills the eye which calls to the heart. I ready the nest, bring what you will. Bits of yesterday everywhere, soft as fur, strong as stick, enough to hold the rush of rain, the wild of wind. All because of a robin. The soul throws open its windows, finds the dawn, its slow lift of the day's small, tender throat to the warmth of sun. You know, sometimes as I walk around the neighborhood, and I am a big walker around the neighborhood, and, you know, I know Gladys had hip surgery earlier, actually late in 2019, and in sympathy for her, I had a hip replacement in December. And now I am back walking the neighborhood again. This is one of the poems that arose from a walk. Sometimes I wonder if I should knock on my neighbor's door and say, you know, something I saw through your window or your door has found its way into my poem. And then I think that might not be a great idea, because I'm really not a stalker or a voyeur. I'm just more of a poet who walks. But this poem reflects on one of my neighbor's little girls at the door. It's called Late Afternoon, the Wind Cold. Small girl crying at the door, what do you keep inside? Red leaf floating in the wind, why am I so heavy? One stone upon the other, why questions I cannot answer? And another poem written while passing a house, really. The stranger. Even a stranger sees the changes in a house. One morning, glistening in the sun, a metal ramp stretches from the wood of a front door to the blacktop where a car is still. On another afternoon, black plastic bags like mourners are lined at the curb next to a walker or mattress. Even the darkness staring from windows tells of the meal not cooked, the plates in their cupboard, the living room empty. And this next poem reflects on mythology, really, and so many books in recent times that have been wonderfully and beautifully written have returned to the great myths to see what they tell us about our time. And as the whole Me Too movement was gaining momentum, I couldn't help thinking about Cassandra from ancient Troy, and she kept coming to mind. I wrote this poem. This poem was published in the Hudson Review this past summer. It's called The Hooves. Oh, Cassandra, all day I hear you hearing the hooves, without hearing the hooves. Your voice carries in the wind and then is carried away to a distant place I see, yet cannot see. I follow, yet cannot follow. So much dust between us, it settles and remains unsettled, as if a tapestry, telling one story by day and unraveling into another at night. But that's the tale of the other woman, the one who was not raped and killed. Yet I swear to you, Cassandra, she too heard the hooves without hearing the hooves. The gift, the curse, neck and neck. Run, Cassandra, run. There is still time. We are out of time. And the allusion in that poem to the other woman weaving was Penelope, who, when her husband Odysseus was delayed returning after the Trojan War, had a palace full of suitors. And to keep them at bay, she said, as soon as I finish my tapestry, I will select which of you I will marry. And she would weave by day, and then at night, when they weren't around, she would undo the weaving to prolong having to make the decision. This next poem goes to a different kind of myth, and really that thinking about my ancestors who lived in what we always called the old country when I was a girl. In the old country are those I never knew, their brooms, the cups, the places where their lives were kept in hopes that nothing, no one would be lost. Did they ever imagine far enough to imagine me, the way I look at stones and ask, how long has it been? The way I watch the clouds, yet know so little about them, but I can smell the rain before there is rain. In the old country, when the seasons climbed one upon the other, how far did they see? When the plates were cleaned, floors swept, the door closed for the night, which stars did they bring behind closed eyes? Which dawn did they dream? This next poem took me a very, very, very long time to write. And that's because it was about a childhood memory that was very painful to me. And it was very painful to me because I couldn't believe that I actually did this, but I did. And it took over 20 years from the time I first started writing this poem to when I finished it. The Hudson Review published this one years ago, and they published it soon after the Iraq War had begun. And I think it's a poem that is rooted very specifically in my childhood, but asks larger questions about what happens after a war. And the poem is called After My Father Returned from the War. Why are you still on the ground, Carl? My father asked the boy who lived on the corner but lay on the lawn behind our house. I'm dead, he answered. Well, you've been dead a long time. Get up. And then to my brother and me, my father said, start the game again. And why does Carl always have to die? My brother and I, in our coonskin caps, holstered guns at our sides, explained that Carl was German, and Germans were the ones who died. Get up, Carl, my father called to the boy, whose fringed Western jacket and pants were soiled with grass stains and dirt. Get up. No one's going to die today. And when I think of this poem, I think of so many things as an adult. You know, my brother and I grew up after World War II. My father was in the invasion of Normandy. And, you know, in those simple days, we thought the Americans were the good guys and the Germans were the bad guys. And Carl was German, and therefore it made sense that he would be the one that died. What I didn't really realize at the time is that we had German in us, and my brother and I were German too. And I think of my father, who, having returned home to start his family and have a home and leave the war behind him, walking into his backyard and seeing that it really hadn't ended, had it? Because here we were, still bringing it to his attention and to our days. So there was that poem. And a few more about my past. By the way, if I knew where Carl was today, I would certainly pay for therapy for him. I really would. I feel terrible that we did this. This poem, Listening. Once again, the child creeps around the corner and comes face to face with a whisper. Does it matter who, where? An old voice bending round something big. War, sickness, fear, a heartache. The answers that do not follow in other muffled words. What the child turns with and takes back into the silence of her room, she will not so much recall as remember. She was meant to be spared, to spare them her knowing. I've always been very, very close to the dogs that we've had, and Brownie was the dog that I most bonded with, one of my first dogs. At 6, I believed that my dog Brownie could speak. If only my parents weren't around, if only I listened hard enough, if only when I looked straight into his eyes, he would look right back and say what no one else would tell me. Now that my big brother was dead, where he was and exactly how I could get there to find him. How I believed, how I tried, but Brownie, like everybody else, just wanted to be left alone. And this poem, which I drafted actually in Vermont while working at Bread Loaf one year, I had given students in a group that I was leading the prompt to write a letter to someone they'd never written to. And I don't know if I'd give that same prompt today because most people haven't written a letter to anyone. They use email and text. But in those days, people did still write letters. And in some free time, I drafted this letter, and it's called Dear Sister. And this one was in the Hudson this summer with the Hooves. Dear Sister, forgive me this many-yeared silence, this never having spoken. My mother's first child, still at birth, you seemed so far away. Each year, I could have told you that on the month and day of your birth, I remember thinking, this was the day my sister was born. Never. This was the day my sister died. This lifetime without you, and the sister you or I could have been, has been so long, so strangely quiet. Did I tell you I never knew the year, just that everything happened all at once before I was born and then lived? One other poem about that really arises from my younger days, and this is called Buying a House. I had been hit by a car while on a bicycle, and I had some money to invest, and I very much wanted to buy a house. My father said, you can't buy a house, you're too young. What are you going to do if something breaks? And I said, I'll call someone to fix it the way mommy does, which was not the best thing to say to him. But at any rate, this poem, Buying a House. My grandmother told me to buy a house if I wanted. By then, her legs had stiffened, and she sat in one position for hours. Glaucoma for years. I'm not even sure that she saw me there, caught between the encouragement of my mother's chatter and my father's silent disapproval. But she nodded again and told me to be happy, which I think had nothing to do with whether or not I bought the house. And we have time for a few more here, I think. I'll do this one poem for in reflection on the dogs. This one is called Walking the Dog. I say I have to walk the dog, and with the sun spending its last light on the road that opens from my door, we both leave the house behind. The neighbor's grass is bathed in amber, and from another road, a hound bays at the whistle of a passing train. The air is scented with vines, blossoms I cannot name. The day has never been better than this. All the world a language that says it's so, and how we listen. Pausing, quickening steps, pausing. Long shadows, sun, long shadows. Walking the dog, I say, but we know better. Two poems that are love poems, so to speak. In loving you, I find countless ways to kiss the sun and kneel before the stars, to whistle birds into song and remember the silver whisper of the rain, wave upon wave of ways to touch the soft arms of the sea, breeze upon breeze of breaths losing themselves in the wind, a river of rivers on silken journeys into the sailing of so many nights that wait their chance, their one chance to kiss the sun. And a short haiku. Sunrise in your eyes, 1,000 blossoms sing songs they have never sung. And I just would like to do two more poems. I think we're okay time-wise. This first one is called This Miracle. And again, I offer my sincere thanks to everyone who has made this possible, because it is kind of a miracle that we live in this time, that we can all gather together and share poetry without physically being together. So in deep gratitude, and I apologize for the couple of barks that I have here. It's going to pass in a second, I promise. I'll mute my mic for a second so you don't have to hear it, but I promise it'll end in a minute.
Don't worry, I mean, the dogs add some interesting background music, Linda. Don't worry about that at least. You can see people nodding their head in agreement.
You know, the hard thing about the Zoom meetings is so many of them occur midday, and that's peak time for Amazon, UPS, FedEx, this morning, the recycle pickup. And so the terriers assume that they've got to protect the house at all costs. But this poem for everyone called This Miracle. Not big at all, and yet so big it had to slip in the back door. Avoid clutter, crowd, the front bell. Of course, it could not stay. No life big or long enough to know its name and call to it, or look over its shoulder and wonder at that very special nothing special, us, here, today. And the final poem that I would like to read is the title poem from this collection, and I just want to say a couple things to begin here. During my reading today, I announced some publications where poems had appeared. I do that not to sound pompous and not out of pride, but each time I've submitted someplace, I never know if my poem is going to really even be read to be considered. And I always feel when I have an acceptance, tremendous gratitude for having tried. I was in Ireland in 2017 as a featured international speaker at a poetry conference. And when I was leaving, a woman there gave me a letter of thanks. And in it, she gave me the name of a site. And she said, Linda, you should submit poems to our publications here. And I said, oh, thank you for believing that someone here might want to read something that I've written. And I went home, and as I opened that letter and kept looking at it again and again and again, I decided, let me go to websites and see what's there. And I saw that Poetry Ireland Review, which is a very big journal for them, was being edited by Yvonne Boland. Yvonne Boland recently passed. She was a major presence in the world for her poetry and her support of poets. She divided her time between Dublin and California. And I saw she was the editor, and I thought, you know, imagine if Yvonne Boland read a poem of mine. And I submitted it, never, ever dreaming that a poem would be chosen. And I will never forget that moment in February, months later, where at 9 o'clock at night, I got an email from Yvonne Boland saying she had chosen the poem. And I share that with everyone today because so often, you know, we wonder if other people really do want to read our poems or hear what we have to say. And the answer is that they do. That's why we're here today. And that's why those of us who will send poems out do it. And I just wanted to offer that encouragement to everyone. And now read the title poem of this collection, which is the one that Yvonne Boland selected. It's called Where the Eye Wants Coast. And it also is a poem that I drafted while I was in Ireland. If anyone is interested in purchasing this book, David Axelrod has a website, and it can be purchased there. There are no shipping costs. It's $15. And I thank Gladys and Kathy for honoring me with spending some time with my poems. Where the Eye Wants Coast. Autumn shares its branches with both sun and frost, and I don't know what the day will bring. But I do know that we come ashore both with and against the tide. And that same solemn rain that follows us home says nothing of when or if it will return. Here is where the tale begins. A scrim of fog where the eye wants coast. Someone seeks harbor, someone sets sail. They wave in their passing, their longing, one and the same. Thank you so very much. And it's scary to be the first person to be part of a reading series like this. I hope I haven't disappointed. Thank you very much.
Linda, that was wonderful. I've been monitoring the chat box to see who has, who's wanted to be on the reading list. And I'm just scanning while you were reading just some of the words that appeared in there. Wonderful, great poem. The ironies are real. Very moving childhood poems. Every poem was so moving. So your feedback from your fellow poets tells it all. So
thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so this is an inflection point now. I'm going to put Linda on mute. And what I'm going to do is we're going to move now into the open read. So just want to go through some ground rules here, and I give kudos here to James. I know some of you have attended his annual Super Bowl party where they have the rules, and there's a referee there who throws a flag if you violate the rules. So just bear with me a second. I'm going to hopefully share the correct screen here. Always a risk if you share the wrong screen. And I'm going to put down. Okay, so here are the ground rules for the open read. So already got the names in chat, so I will do the names in the order that they appear. Please, only one poem. Many of you want to read, and we have the 5-minute maximum. So if we go more than 5 minutes, you know, I will turn off your mic. So please be respectful. You have a lot of folks that want to read. Please wait to be called upon. So out of respect, and again, if you haven't already put in your name in the chat box, please put it in, and we'll fit you in. Barbara, as the Poet Laureate, will close the program. We had scheduled this being the first time. We really didn't know how it was going to go. So if we finish it at 12 o'clock, that's fine. But we're prepared to flex at 12:30. So we'll see. Right now, we've got 24 people in the room, and I've got about 9 people on the list. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. So way we're going to do this, I'm going to try to stop sharing. And I'm going to ask, the first person who was on the list was Gladys Henderson. So Gladys, if you can try to unmute your mic, and the first reader will be Gladys. Go ahead, Gladys.
Thank you, Linda. What a fabulous reading. It's such a miracle to be with us all. I'm just astounded. The poem that I'm reading today is a poem that I wrote for a person who was celebrating her 100th birthday. And I was asked to write a poem to celebrate her. I met her at a poetry reading out east. And I went to the lake to come up with the poem, but the world that was happening kept on breaking in. A poem for your birthday, for Marjorie Day on the occasion of her 100th birthday. On this day, low clouds hold up a June sky, and the lake that's always mostly calm is troubled by a north wind. It curls its way around the belly of the pond, hemming in the shoreline and lifting high the flights of gulls and geese. Irises and roses have started their shows of exquisiteness. Doves have made pairs. They run after each other, playing tag, and catch me if you can. St. Mary's bell tower plays its carillon. I sing a song of the saints of God, and I sing along. A childhood memory spurs me to find the words. Breeze trembles the newly emerged maple leaves. They curl in unison like mouths of evangelical choristers, singing with urgency, perhaps, that the listeners might find peace. Heaven has given me all of this today because I've been asked to write a birthday poem for you. But I cannot ignore that America is burning. Thousands of men and women are willing to die from the virus. They march for the right to live in America free of prejudice, free of police that entitle themselves to murder Black men and women. You have lived 100 years, and this lake with its beauty has hardly changed in all those years. I give you this poem and pray for heaven's help that on your 101st birthday, America has changed and we are free at last. Free at last.
Thank you, Gladys. Okay, next on our list is Cliff. Cliff, so if you could turn on your mic there.
Yes, I didn't expect to be going so soon, but I'm ready.
They're all yours, Cliff.
Okay, I have a I have a Sanrio sequence, and it's called Middle Grounds. Okay, and I think you'll get the drift as I read. Sanrio's sequence, Middle Grounds, the final version. The final version, that's important. In my mid-60s, I have fewer and fewer old friends. In my mid-50s, all my favorite books falling apart. In my mid-40s, I climb upstairs slower and slower. In my mid-30s, I get very drunk and very, very fearful. In my mid-20s, I eat my dinner, then my dessert. In my mid-teens, I break my mother's grasp and hug my girlfriend. At 5 years old, I find the 9th Street schoolyard and feel like Columbus. That's, I'm not in my mid-70s yet, but I think this is it.
Your 80s and 90s. So, okay. Next up is Linda. There are a couple of Lindas here. So Linda, you can turn on your mic. I'll ask you to unmute. Go ahead, you're on.
So nice to see your faces. This is called A Tomato Grows in Brooklyn. For those who make it against great odds. On a wooden piling in the waters of Brooklyn Bridge Park, a lone red fruit grows between Pier 1 and Pier 2. This one seemed to materialize magically. No gardener, no planter, embedded in a hole left behind by a nail, it grew. Against all odds, dropped by a passing bird, expertly dropped, placed and tended by an unseen hand, it thrived. Calling a paddleboarder across the East River with its yellow blossoms, it was captured by his iPhone. Presented to the experts, pronounced a sweet accident, preserved in print, read, write, return, indeed.
That's
Thank you, Linda.
read, write, return. That's a
Okay.
nautical term.
Okay. Remind folks to keep their mic muted unless they're being called on. So next up is Sharon Doyle. Sharon, give her a second.
Right here. Right here.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you reading. Word magnets. At a loss for words. That seldom happens. Staring, waiting, brain gray, nothing forming. Remember refrigerator magnets? Patterns, willy-nilly phrases, move them around. Profound. I just ordered a set.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Kathy Dowell, you're up next.
Hey, hi, everyone. So, Linda, wonderful reading, so personal, and I really appreciate those personal poems. I want to just say before I read my short poem, not knowing how many people would sign up, that Dan gets all the credit. He's the Zoom master, and you know, he really is responsible for all of this. And Barbara, thank you for continuing to host. And thank you everyone for dropping whatever you were doing at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Home. Grandmother. In a small room on the second floor, with an open window, the door is closing. In an armchair, a lit corner, with an open book, she glances upwards. An autumn breeze turns old pages. Abruptly, she doesn't notice. The book drops, door slams, she closes her eyes, absorbs the sun.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up is JR. you turn on your mic, JR, I will invite you to unmute. Go ahead, JR. I think you just turned your mic off. Turn it back on. And we're patient, don't worry.
There we go. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Barbara. And especially thank you, Linda. So I wrote this morning. I was typing it at 10:55. Tranquil time. My dog sits on the swing with me, as though this is his birthright, pushing Paul from his seat. Snickers sprawls out, relaxed, his head on my lap. We swing. Tranquil time. A plane intrudes the silence. He looks up, watching it, and I wonder what he's thinking. What is that? Not a bird, so loud, so big, so high. What's that? He sits up. We stop swinging. I nuzzle him, rub the tender place behind his ear, but he is distracted by the roar of the intruder, ears perked, ready to pounce to protect me. I tell him it's okay. It's a plane. People traveling to other places, vacations, business, pleasure trips. But it's okay. I'm not going anywhere. We swing. He sighs, puts his head on my lap, content.
Thank you, Judy. Well done.
Thank you.
And Jack, if you want to turn on your mic. Jack, let me see if I can find you here. Okay, Jack, I've activated on my end. Jack Daffos, the birthday boy. Okay. Give him one more second. Okay, I don't see Jack. How about, we'll ask him if he wants to come back later. How about Barbara?
Dan, Jack is right there.
I don't hear his voice though. I cannot turn on his mic from here.
He's unmuted. He's unmuted. He's at, if he can, he's waving. See him waving?
I know, Jack, on my end, thank you for that assist there, Sharon. Jack, my mic is on my end, so there's something on your end with your microphone. So I'll give him one more chance. And if someone is scheduled and we got a technology issue, we'll give that an opportunity at the end. Jack, one more chance? Okay. So Jack, we're not going to forget you. At the end, I can turn on everybody's mic and we'll see if that works. But sometimes there are issues on the other end of the computer. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that, Jack. Let's keep at it. Okay, Barbara.
Do you mean Barbara Siegel or Barbara Southard?
Barbara Siegel.
Okay, that's me. Thank you.
You're worth waiting for.
Well, we'll see. But this poetry has been so fabulous. My heart was in my throat all through Linda's reading. So this is called, it's a little funny. It's Pandemic Panic. The door closed. I on one side, you on the other. I with headache, stomach ache, body aches, sore throat, disorientation, chills. Was that a cough? A new dimension in social distancing. Your pillow, alarm clock, a few days' clothing, removed to the guest room. My face is flushed, you say, but thermometer, no fever. Day now topsy-turvy, a hall of mirrors. Overreaction or COVID-19? Go deep, poet had urged. I'm way over my head. Am I well or nearly dead? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, can I get one more mic? Jack Zaffos? Give him one more try. Okay. Sorry, Jack, we see your head nodding. What we can do, Jack, afterwards, if we get disconnected here, if we're not able to get you, I promise to give you some one-on-one coaching. We'll see what the issue might be. It's probably a switch somewhere along the line. Okay. Okay, and we're fortunate to have Pramela with us. Pramela, would you like to turn on your mic and join us?
Hi, everyone. Linda, thank you so much for reading today. I just enjoyed all your childhood poems, and I wrote down like phrases here and there that were like, wow, you know, that's a great image. I wrote it down in my notebook. And thank you all for sharing your poems. It's a real balm to hear poetry, you know, after all the analysis and stuff that you hear on the news, and, you know, you think you're going to just sort of die and poetry comes and saves you. So here is a poem that I wrote about 10 years ago. And it is about the repeated story that we hear of police brutality. And the title is very long, the poem is short. He runs, the policeman pulls out his rifle and fires 8 shots. The fleeing man falls in slow motion onto the grass, face down, still again and again. The replay makes us so numb, we don't startle anymore. Snuff the startled response, dumb down morality, bulletproof the senses, brainwash originality, condition thoughts, replay, 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 condition imagination, desensitize, tamp down moral fibers, taser conscience, practice eugenics, build prisons, invent clean deaths, control square peg in a round hole, pests. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramela. And our next reader, oops. Our next reader is Dan Kerr. And this poem is certainly timely, and it's called The Crucifixion of David Dorn. I don't know how many of you know who David Dorn is. If you're not familiar with David Dorn, I suggest you Google David Dorn. And it's called The Crucifixion of David Dorn. I wasn't born when they killed Emmett Till, but I Googled the pictures of his battered face looking up from his coffin. I saw President Kennedy's head explode in the Zagruda film and the bloodstains on Jackie's pink dress. I listened to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial and saw Martin lying dead on the Memphis motel balcony. I watched RFK lying on the floor the night he won the California primary as the bus boy cradled him in his arms and blood flowed from his head. Like all Americans, I was disgusted when George Floyd called for his mama just before he stopped breathing. During RFK's funeral, Teddy Kennedy famously said, "My brother need not be idealized in death beyond what he was in life." As I watched the large crowds assembled for the 3 Floyd funerals, I thought of the families of the 100,000 coronavirus victims and others who died during this plague. While 6,500 people passed by his Floyd's casket and 500 people attended his last funeral, I remembered my aunt's funeral was limited to 10 mourners, graveside only. The instigator of the Crown Heights Brooklyn riots against Jews delivered the eulogy. And Al Sharpton threw gasoline on the fires of division in a country that was united in its outrage over the killing of this gentle giant. The pregnant woman who George Floyd once held the loaded gun to her belly was not invited to speak at the funeral. As the whole country wants to take a knee for George Floyd, will anybody take a knee for David Dorn? While George Floyd sold crack and cocaine in Houston, David Dorn worked with disadvantaged inner city youth in St. Louis. While Floyd served time in jail for selling drugs and armed robbery, Dorn rose to be a police captain in St. Louis and later became a police chief. Cap, that's what his friends call him, all the officers who looked up to him. Cap Dorn was a role model for compassionate police work especially for the young Black officers who he mentored. As America ignores the advice of Ted Kennedy and idealizes George Floyd in death beyond what he was in life, why do so many of us ignore the death of David Dorn? The Gospel of John tells us there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for a friend. David Dorn responded to the burglar alarm at his friend's pawn shop and was shot by young Black men seeking justice for George Floyd. Someone videotaped the 77-year-old Black policeman face first in the street and streamed the 13-minute video on Facebook Live. You can see David Dorn's eyes fluttering as he bleeds to death in the street, while young men pass by joyfully with the fruits of their looting. As Jesus was dying on the cross, he cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." David Dorn's son said that he was passionate about helping young people and would have forgiven the looters that killed him. When Jesus breathed his last breath, the centurion at the foot of the cross said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." As David Dorn breathed his last breath, a passerby said, "Oh my God, they've killed somebody's grandpa." When the news of the crucifixion of David Dorn was reported, the St. Louis Black Police Officers Association released a statement. And this is what they said. They said he was the type of brother that would have given his life to save the looters. Well, Black lives matter. All Black lives matter, especially somebody's grandpa, Police Chief David Dorn. Thank you. Okay, and I think on the list, I think we've got Pramila and Patricia, you wanted to share a reflection. We're fairly flexible here, so if you just turn on your mic, you can share a reflection. Patricia is calling in from Tampa, Florida. Go ahead, Patricia.
Hi, well, I'm not a poet. My son was a poet. He died in 2013. And I'm really amazed at how people can put these visual images together and you get just a picture from a short amount of words. I am a visual artist, and in my college years put together a poetry and art magazine. So Linda's poem, her haiku, reminded me of this work of art that I did. I don't know if you can see that.
That's beautiful.
And the poem Hands by David Axelrod reminded me of this print that I have. I don't know if you can see it. It's hands
Yes, we can.
of my friend who died of AIDS. So thank you very much for all your words. I've been in tears this whole time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us. Okay. And Jack is going to get the Persistence Award because he's now logged in on a different device.
Yes. Okay, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Great. Okay, here we go. Get to the poem here we go. This is called A Hole in the Heart. There's a hole in the heart where the pain comes through, the pain you don't want to feel. When you feel alone, walking on a treadmill of standards you just can't live up to. And you remember the images of old battered dreams, and you are so alone, pounding yourself into the mold of the forgotten and undeserving. Oh yes, I know that wound, it speaks to me. I know that exquisite pain. Those tears are within me, and I am learning to catch them in my hands with a loving embrace. And they are flowing into an ocean of life, and have become a ripple of compassion, which I've been told has been received as it flows through a hole in the heart.
Thank you, Jack. That was worth waiting for. Okay. Now, there's someone on the line who didn't put himself on the list, but those of you who've been with us for years know that priest in charge.
Richard want to read?
I'll get to that, Kathy. So there was a fellow there's a guy, I don't want to put him on the spot, but you guys may remember Father Farrell was the priest in charge. And one of Father Farrell's parishioners in North Carolina, James Horn, is with us today. James, I know you're a poet. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you want to read today, just nod your head and turn on your mic, and you're welcome to read, but you're under no obligation. He's going to pass. Okay. Okay, thank you, James. Okay, give ours best to Father Farrell. Okay, so Richard, your name was not on the list, but thank you, Kathy, for pointing that out. Richard, did you want to read? I'll unmute you. So you have to activate the mic on your end, Richard.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Where are we? The phone.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a snapshot from May 10th. Penumbra, May 10, 2020, Suffolk County. My town lies in the shadow of the epicenter, New York City, where death makes the rules. Metropolis, where millions shelter in cramped apartments, where the affluent reside in the sky, where essentials must ride crowded dawn subways late night buses to and from the outer boroughs, and social distancing is a dream. Policemen, firemen, first responders, healthcare workers toiling for sparse protection amongst the ill, struggling to subdue the virus as corpses fill refrigerated trucks, await burials none may attend, while I, sequestered in the safety of my home, unable to share triumphs nor defeats, can only marvel and salute those who give so much and work amongst the suffering.
Very timely and very moving. Okay, I've now gone through everybody that's on the list.
Sasha and Paula.
Thank you, Kathy. I've got everybody on the list. So what I'm going to do, Kathy, with your approval, is I'm going to go around and give everyone an opportunity if they want to share. They haven't shared yet. So Ophelia, if you want to read, just nod your head that you want to read, and I'll turn on your mic. If you want to pass, that's fine too. You do want to read. Okay, Ophelia. So I am asking you to unmute. Now you need to turn on your light. And there you go, Ophelia.
I'm going to read my latest poem. Right? And I thank Barbara Southard for editing. Okay. Between sweetness and strife. I sit on the only chair at the kitchen table, dressed in mommy's petticoat, eyeing a plate of soda crackers and chunks of honeycomb. Mommy sweeps the kitchen floor, Papi grooms his gamecock. Church bells begin to toll as two nuns lead a children's procession. Mother Superior demands my presence. Mommy slow dances with a broom. Papi reflects on the uncountable bets against his champion cock. I munch soda crackers, suck honeycomb, spit out a bee that flies back to her golden chambers. Between sweetness and strife, all of me flourishes. I apologize.
Thank you, Ophelia. Okay. Okay, Mike Daly, you're there. If you want to read, just nod your head. Don't have to, he does. Okay, I'm going to unmute you here. And now you may need to activate your mic on your end. I'll let you know when we can hear you. So there's probably a little screen there on the bottom. Scroll towards the bottom of your screen, and you may have to hover over a microphone. There you go, Mike. You are in.
Okay. I'm going to read one written a few years ago. It's Flag Day this weekend, and this is called My Old Flag. The flag sits folded in my den. Its stars just 48, for it's a flag from way back when my father met his fate. I never ever knew the man, for I was then but 3, and anything but pictures is a long lost memory. He was an Air Force pilot. His plane was there, then gone. No enemy activity that they knew of going on. They never found the wreckage. They just declared him dead. So when the search was over, Mom got this flag instead. That's almost all that's left of him, and I'm not one to brag, but my father gave his life for it. I'm proud of my old flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. That was very moving. Okay. Mel, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to read, just nod your head. Up and down, that you'll pass, that's okay. We're glad that you're here with us, though. Thank you. Okay, I'm going around the boxes here. Kathy covering everybody. Joan, would you like to read? Joan Nussbaum, would you like to read? No, she says no. And let's see. 516488, I'm not quite sure who that is. That may be someone we've already heard from. I'll unmute you if you'd like to read. Okay, I think that may be Cliff in another form. Okay. Paula Camacho, would you like to read? Okay, don't see any action there. Sasha, good to see you back with us. I'm going to give you an opportunity to read if you like. Sasha?
I just unmuted.
You are, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. This is called Unchartered Voyage. An expedition into the wilderness, nothing left to chance, but chance cannot be denied. Time measured by a different clock, yesterday does not die, it continues to sadden and overwhelm the spine of an uncertain earth. In the pitch dark, feeling small, alone, and mortal, sleep comes, calm comes. I dream good fortune written on strips of paper, tied like blossoms to bare tree branches. Day broken, gray silk sky fueled by sunlight, a clear bowl of blue. Each walk down the street, each morsel of food, each eye-friendly wave, a gift. Though I dare not shake hands, it is possible in my heart to anticipate a season of healing.
Beautiful, Sasha. Very timely.
Thank you.
Okay. Ashley, you're here. I don't know if you want to read a poem. You're welcome to, but you're under no obligation.
Not today. I just want to thank everyone for sharing your poems. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay. And Ruth, I see you there. If you'd like to read, you can. You're under no obligation. I don't have a face to look at, but if you'd like to read, you can. Okay. Okay. Kathy, have I missed anyone per your record here? You're on mute, so I don't hear you. I think.
Oh, okay. I think Robert left us. I don't see his picture up here anymore. I think you covered everyone.
Okay. So what I'd like to do at this point, if there's anyone who would like to read who hasn't been heard, just unmute your mic and shout out your name. We'll let you read. And if there are no others waiting in the wings, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara. Okay, Barbara, just wait for a second while I pull up the screen. And hopefully I get the right one here. Okay, and Barbara Southard, you need Barbara. You have the microphone now, Barbara.
All right. We still have that ground rules up there. I'll see if I can get everybody in here.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. I'm talking to some, oh, there we go. Very good. Well, this has been incredible. I mean, particularly for a first Zoom reading, you know, for this venue, it's just worked out so well. The poems were so powerful. Linda, thank you very, very much. Just such wonderful poems. And towards the end, you read a poem about miracles. And that was just a wonderful finish to your reading. Thank you all readers for reading. And our next venue is on second Saturdays. On July 11th is Pramila Venkateswaran. So that is going to be a huge treat. I will tell you quickly about Pramila. We all know Pramila, but I will just tell you quickly that, of course, she was Poet Laureate of Suffolk County from 2013 to 2015. She's co-director of Matwala South Asian Diaspora Poetry Festival. She's the author of Thurfa, Behind Dark Waters, Draw Me Inmost Trace, 13 Days, To Go Slow Ripening, The Singer of Aleppi. She teaches English and Women's Studies at Nassau Community College, and she was the 2011 Walt Whitman Birthplace Association Long Island Poetry of the Year. So please tune in next month in July on the 11th. And thank you very much for coming, all of you. This has been wonderful. We can go out for the Saturday with our hearts uplifted. Thank you.
Thank you, thank Dan, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. What I'm going to do is going to stop recording here. So let's see if I can figure out how to do that. So I am learning as